Hey everybody. When I saw that this month's subject was history, I said, "Ooh, I just acquired a whole bunch of history, so I thought maybe you would like to take a walk back in time and peruse through a gentleman's life, pretty much. This is one of 4 or 5 boxes that I received. The other boxes were of books and papers and that kind of stuff, which we also love and we also love to use. But it was the little trinkets that really fascinated me. There were a lot of little gag gifts and joke items and card games and glasses and things, and I just find other people's belongings, their little personal items like that, so fascinating. And that's why whenever I go to an estate sale, I always look for the boxes that have ephemera and pictures and papers and things, because that is always what really tells you about a person, in my opinion, is just the one box of little things that they have put aside. I know that I have one, and it includes some of my dad's stuff, and I have pictures of old friends in there. And my dad's stuff, I have watches and watch bands of his and belts. I have stink bugs all over this stuff. As you can tell, it's been a bad year for those. If you're on the East Coast, you know how I feel. Although I think they're moving. I think they're pretty much all over the country now, those disgusting little critters. That's a billy club. I don't know why he owned one. I don't know whose head it was cracked over, but it's been worn. It's been used for something, beating up around something. I have to glue this cigar box back together. I really like it. It's a really nice box, but it's come apart. So I've got to put that back together. And if I picked it up without holding the bottom, everything would just fall out. I think that horse is bronze or something, but it's very much broken. And this box just had a bunch of neat little gadgets, his little fountain pens, and the that glass tube in there is actually real glass. It's not plastic, even though it looks like it would be plastic, but that's a glass tube. I think is really, really cool. And he has his little box of that is also a brass or a bronze. He has his little box of pencil leads, which I think is so funny. Because the box is in such amazing shape. You don't find things of that vintage in such good shape, so it must have sat in that box and he just used it when he needed it. Didn't bang around anywhere. I found these glasses, and the holder stands up, so it's meant to stand up on your desk, and I've never seen that before. I don't think they have those, and if they do, it's something I've never come across that they continue to make anyway. He has all these corks, including bottle caps that have cork in them, which is something that we look for now, and something that they reproduce, but they don't actually use them in soda bottles anymore. He had a few sets, I think 2 or 3 sets of poker chips, and they're all wooden, and they're very lightweight. Oh, hey, can you believe it? There's a stink bug trying to play poker. Fascinating. And his leg stuck there. That's really nice. But he had one handkerchief from a woman's hanky, and I don't know why, because there's no other ones. There were very few signs of a woman having been in his life. I've seen a couple of things. I've seen a couple of letters. This is the newest item, camera, a Minolta camera, and it still has the film in it, so I might try and see if I can get that developed. I don't know if drugstores develop 35 millimeter anymore, if I have to send it out, but maybe we'll make a whole nother video of that. There's a gavel. I don't understand that either, because I didn't see any signs of anyone having worked for the police department or the court system. That is made out of brass. It's thin. It's very thin. And but it's very rugged and it's very nice. And that's just a lid. I don't have the tin for that one. And he has a bunch of these little bingo markers, you know. The box that's in is some kind of, I don't know what was in there, but whatever it was valuable. See, there's the rest of those little bingo chips. I try to show you there what it is. It's silk. I don't know if the box was silk or if what it contained was silk. But it's pretty neat. So whatever was in that box was valuable in some form. I wish I knew what was in that box. It's pretty cool to see that stuff. And this camera was one of the coolest things that we found. It has a secret button right there to open. I forgot to flip. There's a little clip that you gotta flip up first, and then you push that button and the camera opens up. And my husband and I had a hard time trying to figure out how this thing operated. We went onto YouTube and we found some videos of similar cameras that were a little bit different, but we ended up realizing that there was that hidden button there. So the camera's in really good shape. I'm assuming some of the photographs I have were taken with this camera, and he seemed to really enjoy photography, since that's the third camera that I found in his belongings. So he really liked to take pictures. But it's in really good shape and it's really neat. So I'm going to see if I can use it. I know that Kodak stopped making film for that camera in the 80s, but I do think aftermarket companies still make that film for those older cameras. So I might look that up, because a lot of those older cameras are making a comeback. And this book here, I have a hard time finding this section, but there are pictures in that book of how to hold a camera and how to use it. And the camera that they're showing is that camera. So, you know, I think that that's pretty cool. See, there's one of the pictures. I think that that's pretty cool that there's a book about photography for that camera. And, you know, he has a little peep show thing and some more glasses. Then those lenses are glass. They are not polycarbonate. And I like that the tag in there is brass or something for the place that he got the glasses from. This is a perfume box. Watch, this is cute. And it's a mouse. Ah, you know, it's funny. He has his own little collection of gag gifts. There's also some fake cat poop in there, but that was taken by my children, obviously. And I've tricked them with it a couple times. I have, and it's been fun. And this tin here has a bunch of little trinkets and things in it. I can't believe the things that they would advertise on. Anywhere they could put a name and an address and a phone number, they put it, including some nail clippers I have, you'll see coming up, that are engraved with someone's business name and address and phone number. So I found that to be pretty fascinating, that they went so far as to advertise on nail clippers. But this bottle is in really, really good shape. And I think it's clock oil, I'm sorry, it is clock oil. And it looks like it has never been opened or used. And I don't think that I'm going to open it. I think that I'm just going to leave that as it is. He has his fountain pen nibs there. Collection of those in that cute little wooden barrel. And these are like dollhouse miniatures. I don't know what these are. These are something he got somewhere. They were in this bag, so they came from something and they were put in there separately. But there's a couple of little jugs and a little what looks like a syrup bottle. There's a third arm reaching in the box there. Belongs to my husband. Even he can't resist. When I open this box, he's got to go play with all the little trinkets. it's pretty cool that you know, I've learned a lot about this gentleman's life just by the items that I have here in this collection of goodies. There's a little bell there, and the bell I think was brass too. There's a protractor and some rulers. The rulers have advertisements on them too, obviously. And the rulers are pretty heavy. They're definitely in good quality metal. And he has some pencils and a couple more protractors, and those are the nail clippers. They have someone's name and address on them. You know, I think it's funny, like, oh, hey, you know, while you're cutting your toenails, oh, look, I gotta call Harry about some insurance. More scissors. Those ones are in a sheathing, so I'm assuming that they are sharp. And I just think that it's so cool. You know, and a lot of people kept things in cigar boxes and tins. That is a magnet. It doesn't really stick to much. I tried. So, you know, I think that that's pretty neat. And you can go on eBay, I know, and you can purchase people's junk drawer collections. And if you go and look at some of the items that are in people's junk drawer collections on eBay, that one has an ad on the back too. And those pens obviously do. It's funny to see what people had in their junk drawers. So it is fun. I go on eBay once in a while and just look at the junk drawer collections. When I was putting all this stuff aside, I ran into a whole bunch of, you know, avalanche problems. Oh, hey, another stink bug. There are so many of them this year. I just cannot get over it. These are some card games that I've never come across. There's a whole bunch of those number cards, and then this is, you know, hops and barley and wheat, and it's a whole bunch of grains written on cards. I've never seen that before. Rye, corn, barley, wheat, hops, flax, oats. I've never seen that before. So that's a collection of grain cards. And then these, they remind me of flashcards. That is a picture in there, and it says Alfie. And I found out that Alfie was his father's name. So I'm assuming that must have belonged to his father, or maybe him as a young child, and that was a box of his father's. Most of this stuff of his, I have assumed, is from the 20s to about the 50s, because that's most of his life belongings that I own. Hey, look, ads on decks of cards. Most of his things that I own, that's the time frame it ranges in. That is a little, it's supposed to be a peeing baby, full of stink bugs, obviously. So, you know, those are just some of the funny little gag gifts that he has acquired in his life. And some of the packaging really, you know, the boxes that he uses to put stuff in amazes me because it's in such great shape. Those are dominoes. I have not been able to tell if they are ivory or bone. I'm going to assume that they are made out of bone because they are not as clean looking as ivory is. Granted, they have to be cleaned anyway to tell, but they don't look as white as ivory looks. That's one of those handshake buzzers. That was the first thing I pulled out of the box when I first got the box, and I said, oh, this box is not going to disappoint. This is going to be good. And that is supposed to be perfumed wax. It doesn't smell anymore, but it's still pretty cool. It looks like, you know, crayons in there. This is a bullet box, 12 gauge shells, and in it he put a bunch of wooden dominoes. I don't know if it's a full set of dominoes. I haven't counted those ones, but the wooden dominoes, they're pretty neat because they're dark. I've never seen dominoes in that dark, like a walnut stain. And then these are all little pocket knives, except that which is a pocket ruler that folds out. And I believe, if I am not mistaken, there is also an advertisement on that ruler. Old ads really fascinate me. I have books of old ad pictures and reproductions, and I have a bunch of magazines that contain old advertisements because I love them. I've learned that Clorox and Listerine in the 20s and 30s made a lot more stuff than just bleach and mouthwash. I think Listerine also made cold medicine at one point. Um, so yeah, I learned that from an early 1900s magazine that I had. But when you go to antique stores, these boxes and packaging pieces, they're usually in much worse shape than what you see, or hardly even existent. So it's cool to be able to have a little bit of the history, a little bit of the throwaway history, because you don't usually see that. We buy things and we throw the packaging away and never deal with it again, and never see it again, not thinking that in 50 years from now, maybe somebody wants to see that stuff, which I think, I want to see that stuff. I think it's pretty cool. So this gentleman, he held on to a lot of this old stuff, which I find to be interesting, because when you were a child, or 20 or 30 or 50 years ago, you didn't think to keep a box because you might want to look at it someday. That's a mouse, in case anybody is looking for a mouse. There you go. Got a mouse right there. But yeah, you don't really think to hold on to packaging like that, although we might as artists, but normal, non-artist people don't think of that. Bunch of dice and a little key in there that went to something. I believe that's another little perfume case that stuff was in. Oh, a stink bug is crawling around. Amazing. I just get tired of flicking them away after a while. That is a naughty little salt and pepper shaker. You can imagine what the salt and pepper shaker parts are really small, so you're not going to hold a lot in there. But you can imagine what goes in the empty spots in the bathtub. Again, he was a man, so he did have, dirty things. It's men. It's what they do. I apologize to all you men out there, but it's the truth. This is a joke cigarette case, and it's stiff from not being used over the years, but you're supposed to be able to slide it out and the cigarettes will stay in, so it looks like there's none in there, which is pretty funny. But you gotta kind of coax it back into that little box. So it's been a long time since that thing has been used. I'm going to assume it's been since the 50s, and it still looks nice. And those are just cards. I'm going to hold on to those. I collect decks of cards. I am going to hold on. They are both the same thing. So yeah, that's the fun things that were in that box. There was a top hat. It's broken, but it needs a hinge. These were fabric pieces from textbooks that I found, and this was his family Bible. It is a large, very heavy Bible, and it was full of little papers and articles and stuff, which is, I find fascinating. I know that most of my family that own Bibles, they keep a lot of keepsakes in there, and this gentleman was no different. That one too had some newspaper articles, and this big one had a bunch of newspaper articles in it, and the cover is no longer attached. Those fabric book cover pieces, though, the books that came in it are in amazing shape because they were covered up all that time. That's just one box of the books. There was Johnstown Flood, and this is some of the papers, including a bag that's a sack from a bank. Please return to. Sorry, bank, you're not getting this back. There's some lithograph pictures. I'm sorry for the pipe cleaners there. German. That book is German, and it has little clasps to clasp the book together, which I thought was pretty neat. He had a lot of stuff in German. This is an alligator purse, and that is a real stinking alligator. I just could not believe that that's what that was. Here we are in my my art space, and I'm doing this one-handed, but this was just some of the other things. He had, you know, photos from 200 years ago easily, which must have been ancestors of his that came from relatives, you know, long, long ago. That's another album. And then there's, you know, that's a textbook, and the cover on that textbook is really cool. Lots of letters, lots of ads. That there is actually an ad. You're supposed to pull the little flaps out and it turns into a fan.